What is up, hammerheads? Today we're repurposing some tools. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so in the last video I talked about thinking outside the box and how to modify tools. Talked about the modifications I did to my bandsaw, and I talked about how I made my scrolling pliers. And that's what we're going to make today out of this old pair of side cutters that barely open. Is a pair of scrolling tongs. Now the first thing I'm going to do is heat these up and figure out how the rivet is set in there, because I need to get that out. And I'm going to try to keep the integrity back here as much as I can, just because I think it looks cool when they still kind of look like an old pair of pliers. Just a personal preference. You can forge this out however you want to. But I'm going to do my best from where the snip part is up, I am going to forge, and then everything back I want to kind of leave. I just think it looks cool. So first thing, we're going to light the forge, get these hot, and see what this rivet looks like, about how to get it out. Alright guys, so it looks like I might be able to knock the rivet out from this side. But I'm going to get it good and hot so I know I can punch it through. But if I'm not able to, I'm probably either going to have to grind it or drill it. But let's play around and see what happens. Woo, jumped on me. Alright guys, we're getting the rivet out. Slow and steady. I bent my punch. That's a problem with cheap punches though, guys. Sometimes they do okay, sometimes they bend on you the first time you hit them kind of hard. Alright, let's get a little bit bigger punch. Alright, so she came apart. Took a couple hits. Let's grab another pair of tongs, because these are hot. Now, let's take it apart and see what it looks like. Now they're apart. That's the other reason why I want to make sure, guys, that I don't mess up anything back here, is because this interlocks together and I don't want to mess that up. So be mindful of the way your tongs are made, so you don't booger up something where it messes with the mechanical function of it. Alright guys, so I'm going to grind off the teeth so I don't risk getting a cold shut on both of these, and then I'm going to come back and throw them in the forge, and we're going to start drawing out our material. To give us enough material, I am going to cut off and go right there where the cutter is. I was going to save it, but looking at how much material I have to make a good, little bit longer, thinner set of scrolling tongs, I'm going to go ahead and take that out. But everything from about halfway on the cutter back, I'm keeping the way it is. Alright guys, be mindful where you're swinging. You hit too far back here, you're going to mess up where where this joint is for the rivet. And even though you can fix most things, you don't want to have to work on something that you don't need to work on. right, guys, so be careful. This is a tool still, so when you start losing heat, don't really work it when it gets cool, okay? Make sure you're keeping above where your joint is, and I'm gonna keep reminding you on that because I don't want anybody to mess that up. Alright, now I got this the length that I want it to be. So now I'm gonna, when I come back out of the fire, I'm gonna sharpen this up a little bit, and I'm gonna start rounding everything from here up. Get it just a little bit more uniform. Now, start rounding this out. Remember, hammer on your corners. Make it octagon, then round it out. Like that right there. Now we're gonna get to work on the other one. We'll set this one right here and let it cool for a second. Alright guys, it's going to look like that right there. So I'm going to let everything cool down and then we're going to dry fit it. Alright guys, so I'm just opening up that up just a hair because it got bent just a little bit while I was getting everything set. There's a basic pair, guys. Now we just got to rivet it together and make some adjustments. Now rivet I'm using is way too long, so make sure the rivet's going to fit, which it will. I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut off about a quarter of it, maybe a half, not a half, maybe a third, to make it to where it'll fit in here and not have too much overhang. So I got my rivet. And because it is going to be a little bit of a tight fit, we'll drive it in there. And then I'm going to heat it up in the forge, and then we'll come out and we're going to rivet it down. And I like heating up just the top half of my rivets. You can do this with a torch also. But I like heating those up because it seems like it mushrooms down a lot better than when I do it cold. Sometimes it gets a little wonky. Yes, I said wonky. Alright, rivet's set. Now, I can go ahead and tell you these pliers are not going to open easy. So I'm putting them back in the forge, and we're going to close them up, and then open up this back half a little bit, and we'll do that over in the vise. Alright guys, I'm just going to clamp these in the vise. I have to get another heat on them. But see how I've got them closed where they're really tight up front? That's what you're looking for. Now I'm going to open up the handles some so you can actually open and close them. All right, gonna clamp, grab and open. Might have to get a little bit more heat on these up. About right there, I like that. And then we're gonna work them. We've got to do a little bit of tweaking with the hammer, so I'll bring you back over for that. But it's just straightening everything up, getting that duckbill knocked down. Close them up just a hair. Alright guys, basic pair of scrolling tongs. Now I'm going to quench these in oil, wipe them off, and we'll get into talking about what we learned. Alright, looks good guys. Got to straighten something I just seen that was not straight. One of the handles wasn't straight on it and I don't like it. So let me put it in the back of the forge and I'm going to tweak that just a hair. Alright guys, so here's our scrolling tongs. They're working very well, a little stiff, but you'll be able to work that out very easily. See, I already got that where it's open and closing pretty wide. If you're scrolling something this wide, you're not using scrolling tongs. You're never going to scroll anything over that big, generally with these. So I'm going to forge out a point really fast on a piece of 1/4 inch round bar, and we are going to try them out. All right guys, so as I said, I forged a point on the end of this 1/4 inch round bar, and then you take your scrolling tongs, grab your tip, and then just roll it up. Like that right there, and it makes a scroll. These work really well if you're doing a lot of finials for like matchstick holders or anything where you're having to do a really small fine scroll. I use them a lot also whenever I am doing a I'm making a pair of or making leaves or anything that requires me to do like a lot of detail work. Like on the stems and things like that. So, all right guys, so let's get real for a minute and talk about what we learned today. Sorry, it is like 1,000,000 degrees here in Tennessee right now. Feels like a dog breathing on you when you're outside. Anyways, let's get real for a minute and talk about what we learned. So we made our scrolling tongs out of a pair of pliers, or side cutters. So let's talk material for a second. These I know for a fact were very old side cutters for electrical work. I knew that they were good steel and was a tool steel. If you go buy a new pair of pliers or more of a modern pair, you know, within the last 15 years, 20 years, and you buy them very cheap at like Harbor Freight or like a store brand, there's a chance they're casted and they're cast steel, or cast iron, and they're not a good tool steel. When you go to heat it up and you go to hammer on it, don't just weld the first time if it is a steel you're unfamiliar with, because there's a chance it could crumble and blow back on you. I've seen a guy whenever he won a ball peen hammer and iron the hat years ago, and he heated it up and put it under the power hammer, and as he was hitting it slow, and you just watched it just deteriorate and fall apart. And I was like, man, what happened? Because I was still new, and he's like, oh, this is cast iron. It won't forge well. So if you're using especially ball peen hammers that you pick up, because a lot of those got casted and are cast iron, and a lot of them are not good steel. Try to look on it to see if it tells you what kind of metal it is. If you don't know, say you pick it up at a yard sale or a flea market or find it at a scrap yard, put it in your forge, let it heat up, and tap it. If it starts forging, you're good. If it starts cracking, just cast it aside and don't even try. It's a safety thing, and I don't want you to waste your time fighting with something that's never going to do anything but just fall apart. Also, back to our pliers. I like keeping these joints together like this and keeping them as nice as I can, because then I don't have to worry about resetting anything. I had more than enough material here, and I probably could even went longer. I just like having beefier tines back here. I just feel like they grip better and they're stronger and they won't bend. So be careful though that you don't booger up where your rivet goes. I don't know the technical term for that. I'll probably need to look that up. I've never known it. But make sure you don't mess that up, or you're going to be fighting with it throughout your whole assembly process. When you're forging these, make sure you take the rivet out. I didn't with these, and I fought these the whole time I was trying to make them. I didn't think I could take the rivet out, and then these were first set I ever made. I've had these for 10, 12 years, if not a little bit. Well, my dad's been gone since 2012, and I finished sanding them in his shop, so probably 2011, so right at 10 years. But take that rivet out and then just either make you a rivet or get pre-made rivets offline. If you want me to, I'll leave a link to like an Amazon or something to where you can go get these. But use a rivet them back together. Make your tines where they're comfortable to you. I made these a little wide. I still like them. I can grip well, but I like mine closed up a little bit more because my hands are a little bit smaller. These are also closed up a little bit more, but I still like them. They still feel good in the hand. Other than that, guys, I think that's all that I have. I did clean these up on the sander a little bit just to even out the tips and to round them out just a little bit. They don't have to be perfect, but you don't want to have real sharp corners on your curve when you're going to bend something, so you don't put a crick in it where it's real sharp and doesn't look right. So take some sandpaper, sand them up, file them. I didn't really harden these. I just dipped them in the oil to cool them down and to give them a little bit of a hardness, but I really wasn't trying to harden them and heat treat them because I want them to be able to bend a little bit. I don't want them to break whenever I go to do bends or something. I would rather them bend a little than them to snap in half and me in the process of doing something. But if you are twisting or bending something that is too big for these, you will break them. So use the tool for the appropriate material with the appropriate tool, I guess is what I was trying to say. But guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you on the next one. God bless. Keep hammering. Oh, forgot to put this in here, guys. I'm going to finish cleaning these up, and they should be in the Etsy shop within the next week if you decide you would like a pair. These actual ones will be in my Etsy shop probably within the next few days after the video comes out. So again, guys, God bless. Keep hammering.